Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm looking at painting a snow scene. I want to show you how to paint snow scenes, but how to give snow scenes warmth. Now, quite often snow, after a fall you've got quite a grey feel. If the sun comes out you can get warmth in the buildings, but I want to show you how to give warmth to the sky even though it may be a grey day, because you don't have to paint exactly what you see. All you need to do is to paint a picture that people are going to enjoy looking at, and that's not normally a cold, dull looking picture. It's a warm snow scene. That's what I'm trying to show you how to paint. If you enjoy the videos, please click on the link bottom right hand side corner. That's the little logo bottom right hand side. You will then pick up notifications and that will subscribe you to my channel. So let me lead you through the painting process of this lovely little scene of a tree with a farm building in the fields somewhere in Essex. Well, here we go then with the first snow scene of this winter. Really, it's still autumn out there at the moment, but I'd like to show you exactly the way to treat a basic landscape. We've got a small building, an old farm building, got a lovely big oak tree, bit of hedging, a gate opening, and we'll have a little bit of distant land. And of course the rest will be snow. There'll be thickness to the snow too. So let's get started. Well, first thing I'm going to do is to damp the sky, not everywhere but just in places. I'm going to damp around the barn like that, because obviously everywhere where there's snow we've got to leave white paper. I'm using a number 4 Aquafine de la Rowney pointed wash brush. That's a number 4, and just clean water at the moment. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to paint around some of the trunk work, because I'm not going to use masking fluid. It's something you can do if you feel more comfortable, but personally I like to just paint around. Oh, and of course around the gate area, and of course around the tops of the trees, sorry, the hedging, because that's vital too. We need that to maintain white, because we've got white around the top of the snow on the hedging for obvious reasons. There we go. Right, now the blue I'm going to use, it's going to be a grey day, but it does have a bit of warmth in the sky. So I'm going to use Payne's Grey, Winsor & Newton Payne's Grey, and flick that on like that, trying to get this sort of bit of drama in the sky, as you know I try to do with all of my paintings, because drama is the key to a watercolour. And we're going to have just a little bit of depth of colour this side too. So it's a Winsor & Newton Artist Quality Payne's Grey. Okay, bring it down, paint in between where the white will be for the it'll be a little bit darker there too. Just be one tone darker there. There we go. That's it. Always dries up lighter, so the odd dark patch here and there. A little bit of dark patch work there, just to show a few clouds running through. What you do to one side of the trunk you do to the other, for obvious reasons, so that you don't see gaps too much. There we are. And that will then go into the distance, a little bit up the top. Now I'm going to introduce a bit of warmth to that now, so I'm going to clean the brush, mop off some of the water from the brush, and I'm going to introduce a warm tone. In actual fact, I'm going to just introduce raw sienna. Notice I'm rubbing that in. I'm using the brush to rub it in. It's a funny technique, but it's a technique that, just going around there we go. that I feel is good for winter skies. You know, these lovely old wintry skies. And of course, because that's the Payne's Grey Winsor and Newton is slightly on the green, on the blue side, you get like a slightly green, a greeny tint to the whole thing, which if you look closely on a winter's day, you can get this sort of a greeny tone to the cloud work. And it goes around like that. Notice where I'm leaving white paper, particularly where the large trunk areas are, not so much the twig areas. There we go. Look at that. It's lovely sky at the back of that tree. Love that. And of course we need colour. The reflection of that yellow from the raw sienna will actually reflect in the snow. Now this is something that sometimes people don't realise, that you will get a reflection even down the hedge work there, a little warm reflection from the sky onto the snow, albeit very weak, but it really needs to be done, because it's nothing worse than a cold winter's day painting, which is what you're trying to depict, but it's got to be pleasing to the eye, so it's got to have some warmth, and the warmth I feel has come with the reflection of the sky in the snow. So after you've done that, all you've got to do is just allow that to completely dry. Now I've moved to a number 8 brush. Just get the camera right. Yep. Now I've moved to a number 8 Pro Art brush. It's the one with the red tip, series 100. Whoops. And nice brush. Now I'm going to paint, while the sky and everywhere is drying, I'm going to paint the building. Now the building, we're going to have sun coming from the left hand side, so we're going to have nice shadow work. So the right hand side is a wood building with a red tile roof, typically Norfolk, Essex sort of area. That's where I live. So I'm going to use burnt umber for the sunlit side of the barn, and that, I've got to remember the thickness of the white snow. It's always important, thickness of the snow. So that then comes down to the snow area. There we are. Get a bit of bleed, don't worry about that at this stage. Then this is the side of the barn on the right that will be a little darker. So what I'm going to do with that, I'll put a bit of ultramarine with that. That's that one there. Bit of ultramarine with the burnt umber will give me sort of like a slightly darker tone, darker grey to that that side. It's not our shadow, but it will be the side of the barn that is not in shadow, but it's not in complete sunlight. There we go. Now notice I've not cut that dead straight. I'll give that a bit of movement. Now it's a good idea now to act, so I don't mind this, see that bit of growing up into the damp areas. It gives the watercolour a bit of lift, a bit of something different. Now I'm going to add light red. Well, that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to use light red for the red tile roofing. Now I'm going to leave gaps because we do have some snow. So we've got the red tile roofing there like that. That comes down as far as there. We have another little bit of area of red tile roofing there. It's a nice thing to do. Quite often you get patches. Put another small patch there, I think, where you've got the snow is missing from the roof. It's beginning to dry and fall warm up and fall off of the roof. So that's looking pretty good. It's not a problem. Now the next area will be inside the barn opening. Now I'm going to start off with a really dark colour, so it's burnt umber, ultramarine, and to that I'm going to put a touch of Indian red, just to give it a nice bit of warmth as well. Because remember at the beginning I said you need warm dark colours. Just come over there, not too much water. The brush holds a lot of water. So let's add more blue and more red. A bit more blue to that. Don't be too... There we are. So this is the opening to the barn. Now at the top it will be very, very dark. And inside I'm going to suggest hay. So that's very, very dark there like that. Then I'm going to clean the brush, remove a lot of the moisture from the brush, and I'm going to then just lift away an area in the lower part as if there's something in there. There we are. And then finally with the blue, very, very strong, paint that in the top right hand corner, because that will give us a real deep sort of feel of depth within the barn. Clean the brush, remove some of the water, take some yellow, and that's our hay. Gradually weaken that, bring it up into the damp area if you wish. Not a bad idea to get a little bit of colouring there, but it does give a sense that there's something inside the barn opening. Good, that's coming along nicely. Now I'm moving to a 1/2 inch flat now, just to ring the changes a little bit. Burnt umber goes into that area when we've had the red and the blue, and I'm adding a bit of burnt sienna too. There again to try and get a bit of warmth, and this is for the hedging. Now you don't need this brush too damp, and this is going to be for the hedging. And you've got to remember that the top of the hedge has lots of snow areas, so it's very open. But as you head down to the lower part where there, and this is the hedge that I've got no leafing here, it's just purely hedging. And then of course in the lower area, do a little bit this side, you've got quite a dense area of twigs and shapes. So for the top it's open like that, side of the brush, and in the lower area it gets quite dense. Same there, look, a little bit higher there, and that really does give a good sense of a hedge that runs away out of picture to the right. There we are, and that goes up to there, and then of course we've got a hedge area here that's also open at the top, and it goes around the corner of the barn. And as it goes around, we're going to paint it dark because I want that to show up the corner of the barn. Yeah. And that is all you do to show up the corner of the barn. Just 1 or 2 little touches there, 1 or 2 little touches there. And that's the hedge behind the large tree. Now while I have this brush, I'm just going to give a sense that there's like a tree behind the barn, and that's going to be quite open as well. So that's just quite simply that sort of branches overhanging. Just helps to balance that side of the composition really. A bit darker in the lower area, and that will be the top of the barn for the snow area. Don't be too dark with that. Nice and fairly flowing lines there, because it is snow, so it runs pretty smooth out of picture. Go up just a little bit higher there. So that's the tree standing behind the bar out of picture. Now imagine a cold day, the wind or overnight snow that's blown across the landscape so that the snow is stuck to the side of certain parts of the tree trunk. So there you would see, but as it goes around the corner, it goes in to an area, perhaps a couple of areas there where the trunks are laying like that, or there we go, and parts of that would then have be white, purely because you've got snow laying on that edge there. So to the left hand side is the snow, to the right hand side, to the right hand side is the snow, but of course this side it will probably lay on the top. So that goes like that, and then up the trunk we go, the underside of that. Everywhere you leave is where the snow will be. It's a lovely way of painting snow, I think, leaving some white spaces, and then we go up a little bit up there, and all of a sudden you've got that lovely feeling that there's snow attached itself to the tree trunk. And while we have this, let's just put in our two, the left hand sides of the nice big gate posts. And then of course we can introduce a bit of fencing in there as well if we wish, just like that. Not that difficult to introduce a bit of fencing within that area, just gradually lose it in amongst the hedge. And that is the start of the tree. Now I'm going to take a small rigger brush, dampen up, and there again I'm going to use this dark colour, burnt umber, could be burnt sienna. Let's put a bit of burnt sienna with that, and I'm going to now paint the rest of the smaller twig areas. So that would be a twig area running up there, quite thick, so let's hit that up there. Let's go a little dark, a bit more blue in there. There we go. It just darkens it up if you add blue, which is something that you know, you can do, or you can have it a little bit, just put one or two darker touches in down the left hand side with the rigger too. A bit loaded, so let's remove some of the paint, and then we finally start to get the smaller branches that obviously would not have that amount of snow on them, for obvious reasons. You get less snow hanging around, or if there is snow on the branches, then you wouldn't see them really so much. And of course, lovely old oak trees. You know, I love painting oak trees in the snow. You know, that you just watch the way the branches sort of snake and quiver their way away from the trunk, and you get these lovely small branches. Not all of them go up, some of them head back down into the lower part before they go up again, because all branches are looking to hit the light. That's what they're looking for. That's what they're heading for, to hit the light of the sky. They're looking to pick up light, And obviously if you know, as you paint them, the further up the tree they go, they're more upright, but in the lower areas they're pulling out away from the bulk of the tree to actually pick up to try and pick up the light. So there we go. So that one goes up there, that one goes up there. None of these trees are perfectly formed, so it's always a good thing to not have a too regular tree. I mean, I've painted trees many years, so I've got a good idea of the amount of trees that I've seen, exactly how they're actually shaped, really. But it's all observation. But I like the look of that. That's probably sufficient for the small twig branches. Now, while that tree is just drying a little, I'm going to now paint in a suggestion of, let's have a door. There we are, putting a door opening in there. Small window in the door frame. And of course the frame will be there. There'll be hinges there. So that's more or less a little door on the there. And of course these are sections. So we've got sort of like a, you can see a sort of like boarding. And it's an old building, so we're not worrying too much about shape. You know, it's obviously quite an old building, so you have to show that with quick, fast movement of the brush strokes. It gives that age feel, just like that. That's all you need to do. Now I'm going to pick up a bit of brown now for the overlapping tiles on the end there, and of course where you can see the tiles there, that's all good. A bit more red now for a sense that you can see lovely old tiles running across the roof. One or two little lines there, just a suggestion of where the tiles will be formed. Good. Yes, that's quite sufficient, working quite well. Really, it's all about a bit of shadow work now to bring this snow scene to life. Well, I've gone back to my number 8 Pro Arty brush to produce shadow work. Now for the shadows, I'm going to actually use I'm going to use cobalt blue and light red. There we are. That's my snow. It's my very purpley blue snow shadow. Could use a number of colours, you know, or different mixes for this, but and I'm making it blue rather than red, but the red just gives it a bit of depth. Right, where will we have the snow? Well, for a start off, where will we have the shadow? Well, obviously down the post there, and across the post would cast a shadow. Down the post there, because that's snow, like that. And of course this shadow would go up, and with this you've got to remember the sun is coming from the left, or we've got light from the left of some sort, so it's the lower part there, then in front of the hedge, so lower part of the hedge there and in front of the hedge, because that's obviously where the shadow would form, and it comes right up to the tree, because that's going to be interesting, which I'll show you very shortly. And so it's the lower part of the hedge there, in front of the hedge there, and of course as you get away from the density, you know, there, that area is very dense, so it'll be very, very dark shadow. But as you get to the top where it's more open, you have gaps. That's why I've left plenty of gaps there. A bit more there, a little bit of shadow down the side of that building, because the light is coming slightly behind the hedge. Now, obviously, if that's snow, that will have shadow on it. So we use side of the brush just to sneak a little bit of shadow onto some of that snow area within the hedge. There we are. Look at that. And one or two little touches above that where possibly the snow it's got shadow on. Good, look at that. Lovely. Now, same mix, too dark. I'm going to use for the shadow side of the trunk. Now, with that low sun, probably get a shadow running across there like that, and that would then be in shadow, that side, like that. That could be in slight shadow, that's definitely in shadow, but that isn't there. Okay, so now you've got the beauty. You can begin to see the thickness of the trunk where you actually put the shadow, and the shadow would run up there like that. Right hand side of there, I'm going to put a little bit of shadow there. Oh, and I'm going to put a little bit of shadow there, and that's going to show up the thickness of the trunk and main branches. Look at that, isn't it beautiful? The way that you can play the lights and the darks with these to get the feel of snow, basically. And of course the snow collects in these areas where the trunks leave the branches, or the branches leave the trunk. Good. Next, a bit more blue in the mix. Now we're going to paint shadow on the overhang of that roof line there, like that. Okay. We're also going to have quite a deep shadow there. Runs in there. It'll also run into there, into the opening. We're also going to have a shadow down the overhang of that roof there. Left hand side across the top of the door. So that always helps to give the barn a sense of depth. We're going to have the thickness of the snow in shadow, like that, and across there like that will be the thickness of the snow there, and a little bit there onto the area there, or a little bit under there, more under than over. There we are. That will show the thickness of the snow onto that area of the roof. Good, that's all going quite well. Okay, now the lovely shadow from the tree. Now that sweeps across, that's the trunk shadow. Not too wide, then all of a sudden you get the branches that come off of that. But of course, these nowhere near as wide as the tree itself, because you're looking across the shadow, or actually looking across the ground really, and then it more or less opens right up, but it spreads a fair way, you know, because it's quite a high tree, and of course some of that shadow would then cast onto parts of the building on that corner. That's an added feature too, and that just runs out of picture like that. Then what I do quite often, I'm just going to take a rigger to do this, is just soften some of those with like that, just to help blend one or two of those so it doesn't look too dense. There we are. And just pull some lines out there. Perfect. Then, of course, we've got a track here, so we should probably see a bit of a shadow on the way the snow hangs onto the turn of the track, like that. And then all you do, you leave the bottom dry and you just soften the top where it turns into the track, like that. And all of a sudden you've got that feeling of a bank from the track. This one can have a small amount on, not a great deal this side, like that, but of course you know, you will get some areas coming up like that, some areas coming up like that, and that can also be slightly softened with a damp brush. Now I'm using a rigger for this because I don't want to add too much water onto that, but that is where you show the feeling that we've got the snow going down into the track. And then finally you're going to have a sweep of shadow across this ground there. Take the rigger, soften that, pull it across like that, and that shadow will be from a large tree running out of picture this side. So there's a large tree there somewhere. You'll have to believe me because you can't see it in the foreground there. There we go. Look at that. Now isn't that absolutely gorgeous? Some other little touches required, but I'm going to allow that to completely dry. Now a lot of people would say that probably that tree is sufficiently dense, but I just feel it needs just a little bit more density. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, with only just a damp brush, 1/2 inch, just damp, going to pick up a little of the dark colour there, a little bit of the raw sienna as well, because these twig areas won't be quite as dark as the trunk work. You'll be able to see through them a little. Now you don't want too much on the brush for this. Let me show you how to paint the little twig areas, and these go beyond the main branches. Draw them across like that. So all the dense twig areas. That's the way I personally like to depict these, even within the trunk area. You get branches that come across the main trunk, and of course it goes a bit blurry where you're picking up a bit of the colour, and this gives, I think, a tree justification, you know, a bit of density that probably you can't quite get. 1 or 2 little twig areas on the ends there. Without that, don't think the tree is quite so good. But that is an optional extra if you wish, but I just like that feel, really. As always, we just need that little bit extra punch with some really dark colour. So I'm going to go down that side there and just show a little bit of the, and that really dark colour is in actual fact Prussian blue and Indian red. Quite simply, Prussian blue and Indian red. Just 1 or 2 little areas, particularly on the shadow sides, or not the shadow side, the side that hasn't got any snow, sorry. and just to tidy up one or two edges really, you know, just to make that a little bit stronger. There, it's just a matter of tidying everything up. There will be some little touches on the underside there, and I'll tell you where we will have some, along that gutter line there, corner of the building. Let's just shove that through just a little bit like that. There we go. Edge of the door there, just re-show that, retouching that corner of that building there. Some really dark little touches along the base of the hedge. Some really dark twig shapes. Just lift up, pull down, just to make some really, just a clear line where the hedge finishes and the snow begins. Quite often you'll have sort of like some twiggy areas within the hedge, you know, that have not got snow on, so let's pop a few of those in just to give interest. All adds to the authentic look. And of course you'll have little dark areas along the bottom. Just shows us where the building sits onto the ground. And also I'm going to darken up the inside of that opening like that, and we shall know exactly where that deep dark opening is, where we get some light coming through onto objects inside the barn. And there's all sorts of little objects inside that barn, and that is how you show it. I'm just going to soften that. It's always nice to have soft areas as well as hard. There we go. Look at that, little soft areas against the snow. Really sits in quite nicely. Oh, and of course the track area may very well have, and quite often does, some gravelly touches. So I'm going to use burnt sienna and a damp brush, not a rigger this time, a number 8, and I'm just going to draw very quickly some tracks that taper and go off. So this is where there's just a little bit of gravel showing, where the farm machinery has come along and gone over the ridge of the brow of the hill there and just worn away the snow. And that also gives a nice bit of perspective into the distance. Good. Oh, and one other thing, there's always one other thing with me. I'm going to show some branches coming and supporting the hedging that I've got in the background there. It looked a bit sort of lonely, so let's give it a bit of helping hand to support. It's always sort of a good thing to do with these lovely old winter trees. Perfect. Okay, well, I'm going to take the surround away and then we'll see exactly our little snow scene framed and mounted. Well, there we have it. I've moved away, or I've taken away the surround, so it's more or less mounted. Just needs signing really. And let's sign it down this bottom right hand corner with the rigger. Always something that I recommend you do to all of your paintings. That denotes that you painted it. There we go. So what we've got a barn Lovely old oak tree, bit of hedging. It's more or less a farmyard setting, a rural farmyard setting with snow shadows. But what I've done, I've introduced a warm sky, I've introduced warmth into the snow, warmth into the roof of the building, warmth into the hedging. So altogether, I think that is the ideal way to depict this sort of scene. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. If you have, please subscribe. There is a link in the bottom right hand corner. If you click on the bottom right hand corner, the little logo, click on that and you'll be able to see everything else that I do. I will be posting more videos very shortly, but in the meantime, have fun painting, and why don't you have a go at this one yourself? Thank you very much for watching.